So in your last comment, you referenced a famous Philadelphia story that a lot of cities face by virtue of having kind of legacy tax structures that are built on cities that have a lot of poverty. And William, you mentioned you talk a lot about kind of city, and what registered when you last spoke was when we cover any 90s era technology company in Philadelphia, they were almost virtually on the 202 corridor somewhere in the suburbs. And not good, bad, or other, just that's what's the base, and it was still density of technology there. And we're seeing, it seems a flip where, I mean, we're in a space in the city limits, and there's obviously a lot of infrastructure still in the suburbs, and there's a lot of great companies there, to be sure, but we're seeing probably more of the universes kind of shifting. Is that good? Is that inevitable? Is that, are you guys seeing that? Does that seem different than what the 90s felt like in terms of, when you were involved? Like, what are kind of some of your reaction there, and maybe lessons that, if you're a market, if you're a broad region, what you should be thinking about?
In the 90s, we were really looking at Safeguard as being everything was clustered around Safeguard, and the meteoric rise of Safeguard was phenomenal for the entire region. So I think in large part, Safeguard and a lot of the funds that it spawned, whether it's TL Ventures or ICG, which actually started coming out of Safeguard, was as a result of Pete Musser setting up shop in Wayne. That, I think, still has some legacy with respect to it, but I also do think that if you can locate 3 miles outside of Center City and not have to pay an extra 4%, there's a strong incentive to do that. And recently the city has done a great move, I think, in removing a lot of the tax burdens on funds that are in the city, on venture funds. It used to be that there would be a heavy tax penalty for a venture fund to come into the city, and if you could be out on City Line or out in Conshohocken or out in Wayne, that made a lot more sense. But what that had the effect of doing was separating the investor from the entrepreneur. And that, I think, was a significant drag on entrepreneurial growth in Philadelphia. And hopefully that has been remedied, and we'll start to see some benefits of that as more funds move inside the city limits.
I was shocked. I just had a conversation yesterday with an investor from a very well-known enterprise investment firm in the region, suburban based, and it always been, and I was surprised when he said, we just renovated our building a year ago, which was a total mistake because we want to be in the city now. And I've been talking to folks like that for 4 or 5 years, and I never heard particularly that firm shock me. So there's something moving, but it still feels like there's a lot of work to be done. But do you think that's good? I mean, Karen or William, is it indifferent about where it happens in a broad region, or is there anything to that, like the density possible? Is it easier to create density here than around Pete's house?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge plus. You're finding more and more people just don't want to have to travel or to have to deal with traffic and other issues of living in big cities. And so as people start to kind of move back downtown, if you will, they want to know that they can do a lot of different things without having to get into a vehicle. And to the extent that you can kind of have all those different pieces in place, David mentioned having the venture funds here. If you're working on a startup, to be able to work in a place like Venture Forth and to be able to get to your primary investors in a matter of minutes is huge, because it means that you don't have to kind of pack everything up and plan the day around getting out to Conshohocken or somewhere else for a meeting and then trying to figure out when you can get back before the traffic gets too bad, et cetera. It makes you more efficient. The other thing that happens, I think, this is a huge plus for Philadelphia in particular, is that it allows you to be connected to New York and other parts of the region more easily. So we have people who are commuting to New York, but we have people from New York that commute into Philly. And they're playing major roles with both the venture funds, but also with the startups. And so if you can attract some talent from New York and have them coming and working in your startup here in in Philadelphia, then that's fantastic, because it means that they can come in, get off the train, they can be in the office at a reasonable time, instead of, again, kind of losing that opportunity to do that because they've had to kind of find another way to get from the train to another mode of transportation to get out to the suburbs to finally get in to get some work done. So I think it's a huge plus for the region.
Proximity matters, right? If you're running into people all the time and having conversations, things come out of it. So for instance, with Dreamit Health, IBC and Penn are actually working collaboratively on another initiative outside of Dreamit Health because of conversations that started in Dreamit Health. If you're going to your coffee shop to get your coffee and you run into another investor and you start talking about deals and syndications and so forth, it's that ease of information exchange that doesn't involve picking up the phone or typing out an email that often results in meaningful business transactions.
Philadelphia has two very, very significant advantages. One is proximity and location. It's got a huge geographical advantage. It's being situated in a very easy commute to both New York as well as DC and Boston as well. The other...
Now that JetBlue's here.
Yeah. Another huge advantage that Philadelphia has is the cost of living. It is a very high standard of living at a relatively low cost. Leveraging those advantages is something that I think the region can capitalize on a lot more, and indeed has to a certain extent. If you take a look at the Independence Capital Funds, among the most successful investment funds in the country, and also another one of the Safeguard progeny, and Ira Lupert, who's the head of Independence Capital, came out of Safeguard initially. They located in a place where they do not have the wage tax burden, but they're right at 30th Street Station. Each of the funds within Independence Capital Fund and the principals within those funds and investment managers within those funds can make investments throughout the country because of the ease of getting to the airport from the office, as well as specifically in the Northeast because of the ease of getting to those cities. So I think they've done a great job of leveraging the geography to make very sound investment decisions throughout the country and also regionally as well.
But all three of you kind of touched on this. This is a Philadelphia question, should we not be limiting ourselves to the Philadelphia region? It seems that the Amtrak corridor of really even the Research Triangle, but at least DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, that's a remarkable density. When we start getting global over the next 5 to 10 years, is that how we should be seeing ourselves? Is there an East Coast corridor that we should be thinking about, or is it just too clumsy because we grapple with the civic mindedness of our city?
I think that it's a mistake, and I think it's a very big mistake to become too geographically focused. You want to leverage the advantages that the region offers, but if you try and build a wall around it to keep people in, you want to be a place people want to come to. You don't want to be a place people can't leave. And by leveraging the advantages that you have, you can attract people to the city. I do think it is a huge mistake if what we're looking to do is to just take care of Philadelphia. The entrepreneur doesn't care. They may be loyal to the Phillies, they may be loyal to the Eagles, but they're not loyal to City Hall. And what you need to do if you want to be a first-rate tech entrepreneurial city is you want to be a place that people are voluntarily coming to and that the city is welcoming in. Look, we have a great opportunity with some of the changes that hopefully will take place in the immigration bill. Right? We're going to hopefully be opening the doors to a lot of very talented people in this specific industry through the immigration bill. Let's be out in front of it. Let's have them come to Philadelphia. Let's have the jobs here. Let's do what the city can to encourage the people who will be coming with that high skill set to Philadelphia.
We've grown firms, but also lost them. Should we be concerned about losing startups that we have?
You always should be concerned about what you could do to keep startups that are founded in the city. However, you also have to be very realistic. So when we take companies like Invite Media, Warby Parker, Adaptly, all of which were founded in Philadelphia, Adaptly and Invite Media are advertising companies. They belong in New York. That's where their customers are. Warby Parker is fashion. It belongs in New York. That's where its customers and distributors and lines are. There should be a lot of pride in having been the place where those companies originate. And Warby Parker and Invite Media coming out of the Wharton School, the founders coming out of the Wharton School, they have tremendous loyalty to Philadelphia. Invite Media kept its development shop in Philadelphia. There's no shame in having a piece of a very successful business remain here, and that's what we can do. Things that make sense to stay here, even if the company itself has to go someplace else. We want to keep as many jobs as we can and be less concerned about potentially having a headquarters move where it makes sense for them.